Senator Schumer is he's nervous as a pregnant nun about losing his reelection to the socialist wing of his party.
They've just skedaddled while this shutdown goes on. And if you're not even showing up for work during a shutdown when you have the power to fix it.
I'm sorry, I'm aggravated. The people who are supposed to be protected are being completely cheated by Democrats in the Senate.
The blame game politically among lawmakers cranking up. Let's bring in the House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, one of the Republicans who is at work. Good to see you, Congressman. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you, John.
So let me ask the whip if we can count some votes here. Are you willing to vote for an extension of the enhanced Obamacare tax credits if the Democrats reopen the government?
We're not there yet, John. September 21st, the negotiations that took place last month, the House passed a clean CR on September 21st that will keep the government open for 7 weeks until November 21st. That issue that you're talking about, those enhanced premium tax credits that are the Obamacare tax credits, those are an end-of-the-year policy issue. We're talking about funding the government, and the two are not related. So, and when you ask the whip, to go to your question, I got people on both sides of that issue. That negotiation has to take place, and in order to have that negotiation, you got to open the government.
Well, one of your members who's on the support side of that issue is Congresswoman Jen Kagan. She has floated the idea of a one-year extension of the tax credits, which Hakeem Jeffries says is a non-starter. Listen to what he said.
A one-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits is not acceptable. It's a non-starter. Like, what world are these MAGA extremists living in right now? To think that Democrats are going to go along with a one-year extension. It's a laughable proposition.
You know, they say they want an extension. I mean, a year is a place to start, but it's like that old book, Give a Mouse a Cookie, right? And here's the thing, is that when Democrats first voted for these tax credits back in the Inflation Reduction Act, that was not permanent. It sunsets at the end of December.
Yeah, it's the
now
deadline.
They want a permanent
I'll tell you what's laughable. What's laughable is Hakeem Jeffries being called a leader. These guys all voted against funding our troops. They voted against funding air traffic controllers. They voted against funding WIC. They voted against all of these things that are so important to American people. And now they have the audacity to come out and start saying it was about something else. No, they're trying to make a political point. It is the terrorist wing of the Democrat Party that is holding them hostage. And you've got a willing participant in Chuck Schumer in the Senate who, frankly, is past his years. It's like an aging athlete, John, that doesn't have the same skill set that they had years ago. He's desperately trying to hang on to his leadership position in the House. And this is the fight that he picks, a fight that actually is going to hurt everyday Americans. It's crazy.
Maybe time for him to go to the broadcast booth, is what you're saying?
I'd keep him away from that, too. He doesn't have much of a presence.
So President Trump is about to bring out the hammer. The longer this goes on, he says, the more likely it is that there's going to be a fundamental restructuring of government, to which Chuck Schumer said this.
The bottom line is that Trump and his people are trying to threaten, use these people as pawns, and say they're not going to get paid, they're not going to get back pay, and all of these kinds of things. They realize it. So I've talked to air traffic controllers. I've talked to many, and they resent how Trump is trying to use them.
I mean, even some Republicans didn't like the fact that the president said, well, maybe people won't get back pay. But this idea that he will fundamentally restructure government, a lot of programs will be cut, a lot of people will be permanently laid off. That's going to put a lot of pressure on Democrats to come to the table.
Well, first off, OMB has said that the furloughed federal employees will receive back pay. It is the law, so that's already been taken care of.
And that's a Trump law.
But for Chuck, end it. If you don't want the Trump administration to have to make some very difficult decisions because you've shut the government down, then get 5 more of your members to vote yes on the clean CR and reopen the government. This could all be over tonight, John, if Chuck Schumer and his colleagues in the Senate would just pass the CR.
As we saw with Brooke Taylor's reporting a short time ago, this is starting to bite. There are some air traffic controllers who aren't showing up for work. There are flight delays going on. And typically when people start to get worried, when they're hurting, when they're inconvenienced, that's when they tend to say, I'm not blaming one side or the other, a pox on both your houses. How close are we to that?
Well, I think we're getting very close because the 13th is the last date that checks can be cut for the 15th. So if you're going to keep this thing closed, all right, whatever point you were trying to make, you haven't made it. You should open it right now so those checks can be issued on the 15th. My home state of Minnesota, John, I've got 13,000 National Guard troops that right now are not getting paid. They will not get checks on the 15th if Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate aren't willing to, by the way, not only vote for the clean CR, but the CR that they voted for 6 months ago and the same CR that they voted for 13 times under the Biden administration. This is insane. They should do the right thing, put the American people first. Let's get the government reopened, and then let's negotiate the way we're supposed to about a year-long funding bill.
All right. Well, so far, there's no sign that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not an oncoming train. So we'll see where this goes. Mr. Whip, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate it. Now this.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.